What's going on, everybody? Good morning, good evening, wherever you are, and whatever time it is. Welcome back to yet another video with you, man. Immersionaholic, and ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another online battle for the Divided Impera overhaul mod for Total War Rome 2. Today, we have the Gauls taking on the Britons in a matchup between the Arverni versus the Caledonians, aka the Scots. The Caledonians are located in modern day Scotland, so you'll see a mixture of some kind of northern Britannic units in addition to Pictish units and just general Caledonian rostered units. Going to be a very interesting matchup. I'm not sure on how both of these factions fare at the moment, because both of these factions have actually been updated in the 1.3 DEI update. They've both had their rosters overhauled pretty substantially. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they compete against each other and just to see how the new units perform. And as a little bit of an FYI, the Arverni will be our next faction overview. So do keep an eye out on that in the near future if it hasn't already been released by the time of this video. Gonna be really interesting to see how the Arverni go. I've been testing them out a fair bit, but this is the first time I've seen them in an online battle. So that's what I mean when I say I'm not really too sure how they'll perform, because campaigns are obviously very different to online battles. Of course, please do be aware. Please feel free to send in any of your own online battle replays. It's very easy to do. If you have any questions on how to, you can always ask me directly in a Discord DM or comment on a video down below. Any kind of Divided Impera online battle is highly appreciated. That's the main thing I'm doing. Or if you manage to do any 1212 AD Attila online battles, I'll also still be doing battle replays from that from time to time, but far less so than DEI. Of course, DEI being my main thing for the moment. Anyway, let's get into the Arverni roster, and then we'll go over the Caledonians, and then we'll get into the battle. So, starting from the Arverni left to right, we have a contingent of cavalry and spearmen. We have Gallic light spearmen at the very front, 300 men strong, no javelin though. Then we have 2 units of Gallic early medium cavalry. Only 100 men per set, but these guys are essentially a solid mid-tier melee cavalry unit. Pretty decent overall. Not a bad unit to use. Then, continuing to the right, we have Gallic heavy spearmen. These bad boys are 300 men strong. They have 20 armor, so they're pretty solid. But one of the most interesting things, well, there's 2 things really. One is their defense being at a whopping 21, which is pretty insane. And then the fact that they have a javelin, which is really interesting considering they're a primarily defensive unit. I'm not really too sure if the javelin is appropriate, but I mean, that's what they have for now at least. In addition though, they also have the defensive formation ability. So these guys, I suspect, will be used in defensive formation by Kalogero once we get into the battle. They're also disciplined, have campaign stealth as do all units, but no guerrilla deployment. Then they have the reformed alignability as do all phalanx style and spear units at the moment. Although these guys, interestingly, can't form a phalanx, they just have the defensive formation. So we have 2 units of them over here. Behind them? Or should we go along the front? We'll go behind them really quickly. We have a single unit of Gallic champions. Very aggressive unit. Very, very strong. Pretty solid weapon damage, however, no armor piercing damage. And they have no armor, so they're going to get wrecked by skirmish of fire. Continuing back along the center though, more Gallic veteran, well, this is actually Gallic veteran freeman. Oh, Gallic heavy spearmen. Different units, my bad. Same kind of story though, 300 men strong, have a javelin. Melee defense is slightly lower, as is most of their stats, but very solid unit nonetheless. Continuing to the right hand side, we have 2 more units of Gallic heavy spearmen. And then on the far right hand side, we have Gallic light spearmen. These guys do not have a javelin. And then we have the same cavalry setup, although it's 2 different types of cavalry compared to the other 2. So these bad boys are the Gallic light heavy cavalry. So they're going to be very focused on melee engagements and dealing some shock damage, although long-standing melee engagements would fare them better because of their high attack, high defense, and very high armor at 38. So very, very good unit of cavalry for the Arverni. Excellent overall. If you can, you definitely want to use those as opposed to these little medium ones, but the medium ones will still be helpful. Anyway, let's go back to the center and work our way backwards. So, getting in the second line, we have more Gallic veteran freemen, so 2 units of those, 1 and 2. Again, they have a javelin. Then we have 3 sets of Gallic skirmishers. These bad boys are javelin men. They do have armor-piercing damage, but their attack and defense is so low, it's not really even worth trying to get them into melee. They'll just be filler units where needed. Behind them, we have another Gallic champion unit. We then have the general of the Arverni, who is a Gallic heavy spearman unit. Very interesting choice to not use a cavalry unit. I wonder why that is. We shall see as we go forward. Looking at their abilities, they have the relentless ability. Very interesting. And then they have the unity ability. Huh. Where is that coming from? That must be from the Vercingetorix general abilities. I've never used that before, so that'll be interesting to see what kind of role that plays. And then in the far rear, we have the throwaway Gallic light spearman unit, and then 1 more Gallic champion unit. So essentially, we're seeing a very spear-orientated army from the Arverni, mixed in with some swordsmen, very good melee cavalry, and then some skirmishers to support. Let's go over to the Caledonian side, and then we'll get into the battle. Okay, everybody, here we are with the Caledonians, starting off with their first main line. You can see that they're kind of divided into 3 tiers of lines, at least initially. So the first line, way up here, we have just a bunch of Caledonian retainer spearmen. Same kind of story compared to the Arverni spearmen in that they have 300 men strong. They all have a javelin. Good defense, although nowhere near as good as defense as the Arverni units that are in the 20s. These guys just only go to 16. But they, again, also have the defensive formation ability, which I don't know how I feel about these Gauls and Celts. Well, I mean, they're both Celts of different kinds, but you know what I mean? Both of these barbarian factions with the defensive formation, it seems a little bit kind of strong for them, but we'll see. See how they perform. We then, in the second line right here, have Caledonian retainer spearmen. Oh, sorry, the front had 5 sets of the retainer spearmen, and then we have 5 more sets of the Caledonian retainer swordsmen. These guys are, again, 300 men strong. They have a javelin, so very strong with that javelin. That's 300 javelins going at the enemy. That's not something to scoff at. They have 20 armor, so it's helpful, but they're... Oh wait, sorry, 15 armor. But their main thing is that they have a whopping attack of 14. So these guys are going to be very aggressive. Get a little close up for you all. But their shield is quite small, so their melee defense won't be as good as the Arverni units. Even their swordsmen. So, interesting setup so far though. Then things get a little bit more interesting because this third line back here is divided up into 2 sections. On the right hand side, we have Britannic sword masters. 3 units of them, heavily armored at 30 armor, which is very good for barbarians. Massive attack of 17 though. Defense is only at 5, and that's because they're a 2-handed swordsman unit. So they have very, very good damage. So 25 weapon damage just on its own, plus armor piercing damage of 13, so a total of 38 damage, potentially 38 damage if they get the hit on the enemy. That's insane. That's very, very strong. Left hand side over here is skirmishers. They have 3 sets of Caledonian archers. Same kind of deal as the Arverni skirmishers though, even though these guys are archers as opposed to javelinmen. These guys have good armor piercing, again, 12. Probably because they're using an axe, I believe. Are they? Can we see the axe, possibly? Yes, we can. So just a small little kind of hatchet, but still quite good at penetrating armor. But their melee attack is only 5, defense is at 2. One of the worst melee stats you can get in the game. So, again, not really worth getting them into combat. In the rear, we have cavalry. We have 4 sets of Caledonian noble cav. Very nice cavalry unit. Their attack is slightly lower than the Arverni though, but their defense is super high at 17. They have very big shields, so that's probably where it comes from. Armor 33, just very good units. So they will outmatch the left-hand side of the Arverni. The right-hand side of the Arverni will give them a run for their money, depending on how God decides to divide up his cav, if he wants to send 2 around left or right, or however he wants to. Gonna be interesting. But anyway, let's get into the battle, and as is the new norm, we will skip the skirmishing phase and get into it once the battle is properly starting. Okay, here we go, everybody. Both of the armies have moved forward. Basically, no skirmishing has occurred, but what we are seeing is attack orders coming out from the Arverni first. Going to be getting their javelins off first towards Caledonians against their retainer spearmen. They won't get any kills, but it will deal HP damage, and it will slow them down from their movement. Although the Arverni are not following up quickly with a charge, so it won't stop the Caledonians from throwing their own spears, so they should have a chance to throw them. Although the Caledonians are shifting for whatever reason. Not sure why. They are getting hit by enemy fire right now. Looks like they're going to rush forward their archers, potentially to take out these skirmishers. Would be a very good target for them. Swordsmen are coming forward though from the Caledonians. Meanwhile, the spearmen are now finally throwing their spears back at the Arverni. Very interesting to see what's going to happen with this positioning of the Arverni armies. Look how disjointed these troops are. Obviously, that's intentional. Kalogero knows what he's doing, so we'll see how he goes. He's coming in with a charge, though, with some of his units, not all of them. Again, not charging in a wide formation. That must be intentional, though. I wonder why, what the go is with that. Slamming into the enemy. Center here is in a wider formation. What I'm guessing, though, is that Kalogero is keeping his men in a shorter formation, or a not as wide formation, so that he can get them into defensive formation instantly. So if we pause it really quickly and we go into these units, you can see defensive formation has been activated. So the units that do have it on his left are initiating it. One on his right is. This unit should be initiating it shortly. So he is trying to make his spearmen last longer against the Caledonian swordsmen who are doing the engaging right now. Although the Caledonian spearmen did take a pretty substantial beating, considering. Although the Arverni have also taken their fair share of casualties on some of their units, not all of them. This unit back here got pretty heavily smashed. Cavalry of both sides is holding defensively, but they have been split into 2-on-2s. Oh, what is going on here? Is he going to try and do a little cheeky charge through? One kind of risk Kalogero is at right now is if the enemy cavalry coming through these gaps, because that's friendly Caledonian troops in the center of my screen right there. No Arverni troops, so could have been very risky. But no, it looks like both players are playing pretty defensively with their cav, although the left-hand side of the Caledonians is advancing towards the Arverni to try and outflank potentially. Spearmen are coming in to support as well. Arverni will pull back, send in reinforcements to counteract. Right-hand side of the Caledonians is moving as well. In addition to the spearmen, you can see God is trying to overwhelm Kalogero with some very fast-paced micromanagement all of a sudden. Swordsmen are sent in from the Arverni, so that should tip the main fight into the Arverni's favor, although the Caledonians still have their swordmasters in reserve, in addition to some spearmen and their archers. Oh, looks like their archers got caught in melee. Bit of a mismicromanagement there. Obviously trying to chase down the skirmishers. They killed some of them, but not all of them. The Arverni have committed a lot of their men to the battle, but not all of them. Here, look at this. Are we going to get a rear charge from the Caledonians? We are. Ooh, look at that. Opening themselves up to a rear charge by the Arverni. Big mistake. Here comes another one. Yeah, sure, the Arverni cavalry will get charged, but the Caledonians will get charged again. And the general's coming in. Oh, big mistake. And that, potentially a big mistake. And this unit right here of the Caledonians is their general. Right hand side of the Arverni still playing pretty defensively, holding, trying to holding back. The center though, looks like we've had a punch through right here from the Caledonians, interestingly enough. Not sure why that is. Oh, that is because that is just the lower tier spearman unit, right? Yep. That's the freeman unit. It's not the heavy spearman unit, so they don't have the armor or higher defense that the other units do. Although they're still pretty solid with their defense. Looks like the Caledonians get their general out somehow without losing a lot of men. They only lost 20 kills. Oh, what? How did that happen? Oh, it's because they charged in with the medium melee cav, not the heavy cav. So, despite the Arverni making the better moves right there, they actually come off worse in that engagement. Might end up losing their left-hand flank. Meanwhile, the right is getting swamped by the Caledonians. They're coming in quite hard. 2 units of cav are recharging the spearmen. You have 2 spear units attacking one Arverni spear. That unit's getting surrounded. They need support, but the Arverni have actually sent their cavalry all the way over here. So now we have 2 units of Arverni cav right there. The other one's right there. Where is the 4th unit of cavalry? Right here in the center, trying to help out, stop that hole that had formed earlier. And they're actually being pretty decisive there. But in doing so, they've allowed their right-hand side to get outflanked. This unit has got a route, and then these 2 Caledonian units can come in and double team that one Arverni unit. Not good for them. Skirmishes are coming back into the picture. They've been held in reserve after that initial engagement. Arverni are trying to take down the Caledonian general. Not a bad idea. Caledonian cav are mixed up with the Arverni right here. They only have about 40 seconds or so though until they get charged by the Caledonian reinforcements. Although, look at this. One of them has been given an attack order to charge into the swordsman. Thus... Oh, what? And this unit is breaking off. The Caledonian general is going to die, it seems, as well as his cavalry unit. I mean, the Arverni are taking casualties due to the spearmen of the Caledonians being involved in the fighting. You can see right here that you have horsemen fighting spearmen, which is not ideal, but... Wow, very impressive. The Arverni cavalry with their overcommitment with their cav on the left-hand flank with 3 units coming in. They rout the enemy general, they take out an entire unit, and now the Caledonians are coming in with their own cavalry, but you have 2 units of cav that can come here and wipe them out if they get the attack order. Meanwhile, the center and right side of the Arverni is not looking too good. The dead center, at least, got punched through. The general tried to respond and help out, which did help a little bit, but now the Caledonians are being very aggressive, trying to chase down the skirmishers, try and hold up the Arverni before they can unite their forces. Very good move so far. This is still anybody's game, but the Arverni did pretty good to overrun the Caledonian general and cavalry on that left-hand flank. Quite impressive, but they are now getting charged in by the Caledonians. It's a 2-on-1, but the Caledonians are very good cavalry, better than the Arvernis, and they have archers who are helping swing the battle in their favor. General of the Arverni is still alive and well, though, doing quite well, only at 288 men out of 300. There's a couple units back here, needs to call them back in. The Arverni are going to need every single unit they can get. Despite getting the general advantage, they certainly do not have this in the bag. Anybody's match still. Arverni cavalry needs some support, but they're not getting it. Dropping the unity buff right there. Oh, and relentless, so the attack of all of the Arverni units is increased, and so is their morale. And that does it for the entire army, so that's interesting. You don't have to be in like a aura circle around the general. All of the units got those buffs, so actually pretty strong for the Arverni to have that. Very, very nice. Keeps the Arverni cavalry in the battle for a little bit longer, but they're fighting a losing battle right there. They're not going to win. And they're not getting support quickly enough. But, I mean, it might not matter. Depends. This unit needs to get taken out. The Arverni need to focus on it. Skirmishers need to be hitting the cavalry, but they're not. They might be on fire at will, perhaps. Yeah, now they have the attack order against the cavalry. Throw your javelins, gentlemen. If the Arverni can kill the Caledonian Cav, then they have a very good chance of winning this. But right now, it's still anybody's match. If anything, slightly swinging back towards the Caledonians because they've just routed more Arverni Cav off the battlefield. They still have their archers. Not good for the Arverni here. They do have... whoa, my goodness, look at all these units out here. They need to come back into the fight. Where are those movement orders coming in? Hopefully the battle replay isn't bugging out and they actually will come back. But the replay seems to be working fine for now. I mean, it's always possible that Kalogero just hasn't seen them, but we shall see on that. Could be a potential issue. The rest of this battle, though, will continue with the replay, assuming that it's working fine. The rest of this battle is not looking good for the Arverni. Yeah, look, there comes the movement order. Oh, dude. That should have happened like a couple minutes ago. These Arverni troops, they're surrounded, they're getting picked apart. The general is here, but he's getting surrounded as well. Archers are making a pretty big difference in the cavalry fights. They're not getting a lot of kills necessarily, but they're swinging the morale in favor of the Caledonians, although they somehow just lose a cavalry unit. How did they lose that? Unlucky. Arverni heavy cav is doing quite well. They have spear support, although they're very close to routing. Yep, there they go. That's a shame for the Arverni. Their reinforcements are coming in though, so perhaps if the Arverni can reunite their forces, form up a solid line, get this cavalry unit in the fight. Bring it in, Sonny Jim. You need your cav if you're going to have any chance in this fight still. All of these Arverni troops that are coming in, they're skirmishers and low tier units, and they're not in very good shape, so it wouldn't take much to get them to rout. Perhaps if the Arverni general can pop his morale ability, now would be the perfect time. They need to keep those friendly units in the fight. And then they can organize to come in, initiate some rear charges. Although the skirmishers are coming in pretty clutch right now. They're gonna get some nice shots in these Caledonian units. Oh no, again, bad targeting though. They need to be killing the cavalry. These Caledonian cav have been allowed to live for far too long. They should have been focused on much earlier in the battle. Look at them, here comes the charge. Oh, spearmen are coming in just in time to interrupt the charge. Very lucky. Insanely lucky. Now some of the Caledonians are starting the rout though. I have an archer unit that was stuck in melee. I have a spear unit here that's not happy. The Arverni are rushing forward trying to capitalize on the morale of the Caledonians falling. It is faltering. Arverni cav is finally being given orders to return to the fight. Again, a little bit late. It's something you got to look out for in these kinds of battles. If you have 300 men strong, good chance they'll come back from routing. Look at this. It's swinging back pretty solidly in the Arverni favor. I mean, this cavalry unit right here will come back from routing. But seems a little bit too late for the Caledonians now. The Arverni should have this. Oh yeah, there we go. The replay ends about 10-15 seconds early, but despite the valiant effort of the Caledonian cavalry and just all around their army, the Arverni come in with the victory. Kalogero gets the W. Congratulations to him. GG's to both gentlemen. You both played fantastic as always. Got high expectations of you both, and you guys never failed to deliver. So, let's go to the results screen, go over the battle, and then we'll end it there. Okay, everybody, here we are on the results screen. Very interesting stats occurring here, and I think we can see where perhaps the battle swung a little bit more towards the Arverni. Although, in the main way I see that is in their main lines. The main line of the heavy units of the Arverni, at least, all did fantastic, getting around 150 kills and more pretty consistently. And that's just in spear units as well. You have to keep in mind, these guys aren't high-level swordsmen or anything. We then have the Caledonian spear line right here, and while they did okay, and some of their units actually did very well, it's not as consistent. Only a couple of their units stood out. 3 of their other units got around 100 kills, which isn't bad, but it's not as good as the Arverni units. And comparing that, those main battle lines, in addition to some of the sword units, for example the Gallic champions that the Arverni had, despite them having very low armor, they actually did really well. 250 plus kills is expected. This one unit only got 119, not as good as what it could have been, but it still contributed pretty significantly. The sword masters of the Caledonian did come in pretty strong, but again, not really as strong as the Arverni champions. So the Arverni swordsmen did very good as well. The main letdown of the Arverni though seems to be the light spearmen. They didn't do anywhere near as well as what they should have, only getting 50 kills, 80, 22. Not only that, but they routed quite easily. You could see right here their morale, the amount of men left in the battle, in the unit, was quite high before they decided to rout. The one unit that got slaughtered only got 22 kills as well, so not very good. Their skirmishes of the Arverni, they didn't do bad, but man, they could have done so much more if they were just given constant attack orders on the Caledonian cavalry. That and the two-handed swordsman, that's the only things those skirmishers should be worried about in the Caledonian roster. But I think they were either left on fire at will, or Kalogero just wanted them to do different things for whatever reason, which isn't necessarily bad. It's just I would have really tried to focus on the Cav and the swordsman. Those are the scary units of the Caledonians. The rest of them, they can get mopped up pretty easy. Arverni Cav did okay. The heavy cavalry in particular did quite well, but all in all, the cavalry for both sides didn't perform as well as what I would expect them to. The Arverni did really good with the micromanagement of the Cav. It's just is kind of the right move at the wrong time. The medium cavalry got a really nice rear charge on the Caledonians, but the Caledonians were really a step above them. They were very good, quite elite in fact. So the Caledonian Cav should have got more kills just based off their cost and stats. The Arverni cavalry, their later Cav should have done better. Their medium, it's not great, the amount of kills they got, but they lasted a fair while into the battle, not all the way into the end. I believe it was a late Arverni Cav unit that came back, but yeah, perhaps if these guys were more focused on shock, or if there was just the later version, which you obviously can't afford all those units, but if he could, then that would have been a really big game changer. But yeah, cavalry of both sides kind of got nullified by each other and just the way in which the armies interacted, which is interesting because it's not too often you can say that. But anyway, that's enough of me rambling. Thank you all so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I shall see you in the next one.